Welcome to Brains Behind the Business, brought to you by Accomplisher, the platform empowering experts everywhere. Each week, we go behind the scenes with coaches, consultants, and thought leaders to unpack some of the boldest moves and smartest strategies across industries. You'll also hear expert insights to support your own professional growth, whether you're building a business or leveling up your career. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Brains Behind the Business. This is one of our experts on the platform, Fiona Bhattacharya. I think I said that right. I hope I did. I practiced and I don't know. I apologize if I butchered it. Thank you. So Fiona is an executive and leadership coach with a 25-year background in corporate leadership. She helps leaders get out of their own way so that they can lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Her work is rooted in real-world experience and her certified expertise, and she brings a thoughtful, values-based approach to everyday coaching relationships. Whether you are managing change, building a team, or facing your next big leap, this conversation is for you. So, Fiona, do you want to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself to the audience and tell them what it is that you do kind of in a little bit more detail and kind of what it is about your business that you are bringing over to the Accomplisher platform and how you can help folks?
Thank you, Courtney. Hi, everyone. So yes, I think your blurb covered a lot of who I am. I come with 25 years of corporate experience, having lived as a people manager and done talent and HR. And so that really was what fueled me to get started into the coaching space. I work with middle to senior leaders to help them really break any internal barriers that they have to be able to lead with confidence. I am certified, and so that adds both credibility to who I am as a coach, but also the learnings, right, that one goes through as you go through these certifications actually teaches you a lot about how to work with people, in different situations. Additionally, I'm also certified in leadership assessments, which I find very, very interesting personally for myself and then for my leaders. It's a good starting point to know who you are, how you show up, etc. So I'm certified in DISC, Hogan, StrengthsFinder, and a couple of others. And I use that very actively to help people sort of get grounded in who they are and what they're showing up before we take it forward from there. What you see is what you get. So I am an empathetic, collaborative coach. I work well with my clients. I also do challenge them at times to be able to see the blind spots that they have, or things that are getting in their way. So, and I give them that information up front, saying, "Hey, be ready. I might challenge you on a few thoughts that you have." So yeah, that's a little of who I am and my coaching style.
Nice. So with 25 years experience in the corporate world before you pivoted to coaching, what was it that inspired that shift into coaching, and how did your corporate experience, or how does your corporate experience inform your coaching style today? We've talked to a lot of folks who say like, oh, I used to work in corporate and I ran across a lot of bad bosses, or I ran across, I've actually interviewed two folks who worked for the military, and they're like, military life and civilian life, very different things. And melding that together once you get into the corporate world is like tricky. So what is it about your corporate experience that maybe inspired you to shift? And then how do you kind of weave those things together?
Yeah, I probably have a very different story to that one, Courtney. Way back in 2008, 9, whatever it looks like, 25 years, a long time. I was a people manager, and I was working in India at that point in time. I found a lot of very high potential women in my team leaving to sort of either get married or start families and so on and so forth, without really exploring the options that they had, right? It was probably the path of least resistance, as I call it. And I stayed in touch with some of those team members, and I found that after the initial phase, right, you got married, then what? You had a kid, and the kid's a little older, now what? They weren't really very happy with that decision, and then coming back into the workforce becomes even more difficult. And so I think that's what got me started on coaching. So I didn't, this pivot from 25 years of corporate into coaching hasn't been today, hasn't been in 2023. It's been going on for a while. As I say, I was coaching without a certification for 10, 15 years, with a certification for the last 5 years. So that was what got me started. And so now that I am a full-fledged coach, and why did I move out of corporate to move into coaching full-time was because I just felt that this was the right time. I had my years of experience, I had my certification, and I just thought, this is really where I want to put all of my time and effort. The satisfaction of helping people and coaching them and see them evolve is a different ballgame altogether. So yeah, that's that. And how does my life at the corporate influences? As I said, that's the life I've lived for 25 years, and I understand. I work a lot with women leaders. I have a soft spot to just see women leaders grow, because I've lived that path. I know the challenges that come, that we face and how we navigate them. So yeah, that I bring all of that learning and things that I wish I had done differently to be able to support leaders today. I also work with Asian women leaders in corporate America. I think we have our own challenges and things that we put into our own paths that we can happily do without. So those are some of my, besides working generally with middle to senior leaders, I really enjoy working with rising women leaders and then Asian women leaders.
And do you work, I know you said you work primarily with women. Do you work with men as well, or do you try to like strictly niche down to ladies only?
No, I work with both men and women, and I find that I have probably a good mix of clients, or in my 1,500 hours of coaching, I think I have a good mix of men and women. But for me, if I do programs for Asian women leaders, and that's the way I sort of focus more on women leaders.
And that makes sense because that is your own lived experience that you have too. It would be very hard for me if I was to sit down with like a male tattoo artist and be like, okay, hey, let me teach you. Like, I don't know anything about tattoos or being a guy or whatever. So it kind of really helps if you can draw from your own lived experience when you're forming these relationships. Because I imagine coaching can kind of be a little bit like business therapy. Like I imagine the coaches probably hear a lot of the same stuff that a therapist hears on a different level, but you need to feel comfortable and you need to know that the person that you're speaking with knows what they're talking about and isn't just like reading it out of a book and being like, yes, this is what you do when you have a problem with your teammate or whatever. So, okay. But
Having
gentlemen,
said
she does
that,
take male
Courtney,
clients.
yeah, sorry, there was a lag. I was saying, having said that, though, I will tell you that as a coach, I don't need the domain experience. It's always good to have, and people associate with it and all of that good stuff. But really, as the way coaching works, one doesn't need to have the domain. I actually coach military veterans. I work with startup founders. I have my own LLC, but that's about what I've done with startups. I coach doctors. I coach CEOs, of course, and so all of their problems are very different. But at the crux of it all, what is coaching? We're coaching the person, not the problem, not the domain. And so that's really what I bring to my coaching, is who are you and what is it that you would like to do? What would you like to get out? Where would you like to go? And everything else, you are whole. You know what you want. You know who you are. I'm just here to work with you to help you get from, like they say, literally from point A to point B.
What happens when you have somebody who is like, I don't know what point B, I don't know what I want. Like, do you help them dig into that? Because I feel like that's where I would be. I'd be like, I don't know where. I know
Yeah.
something feels off, but I'm not sure what it is and how to get out of it?
Absolutely, and I have leaders who come in with different angles or shades of that. There will be some who say, I don't know what I want, Fiona, and I know I'm not happy where I am, but I don't know what good looks like. And
Hmm.
so that's one. I also have leaders who would say, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but really I don't have a problem. I don't have anything I need. I'm fine. So yeah, you get all shades of that. I think, like I mentioned earlier, one of the ways I found helps clients get grounded, especially senior leaders. You can imagine they don't have the time, they
Hmm.
don't even have the brain power to invest in themselves very often, unfortunately, knowing that it's probably the best place to invest. So I use a lot of leadership assessments for them to be able to understand what is it, who are they, where are they. So Hogan, for example, tells you about how you show up as a leader, right? That could give you some pointers into how you want to show up differently.
Hmm.
Strengths can give you a different, disc can give you a different one. So those are the ones that I do to help them ground. That's one. The other one that I bring very strongly to my coaching in different ways is the values. you know Knowing who you are and knowing what you stand for, and then taking that from there to build the future that you want. I'm currently working with a leader who says, how do I pivot? I'm 50, how do I pivot from here?
Hmm.
That's a good starting point. Where do you see, what are your values, and what do you want to do with those values? After a certain point, it's not really only about job and career, it's about you as a person and who you
Hmm.
want to be. So that's really how I bring in different forms to help people ground to who they are, what they want to be, and then we start coaching from there.
I like that. Okay, so not only do you work with individuals, you also work with teams. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I do. I'm
Okay.
a certified systemic team coach.
Okay. So what would your process be? Quickly, obviously don't give away the secret sauce or anything. But what would you say your process for helping a team build trust and alignment within the team? Because, you've got people with different values, different personalities, different working styles. I imagine that can be very tricky.
It has its own share of fun. I particularly like team coaching for having been a people manager for so long. I've done it in different forms, just probably again without the certification. So I think the key thing to having teams is having a common goal for them to work on.
Hmm.
And that becomes critical. So that's my starting point. I'm always asking the sponsor, what is it that you want this team to walk away with? Additionally, things like speaking to each of the individual team members to understand who they are, what they bring to the table prior to bring them into a group coaching session. As we get into group coaching sessions, I think I follow some of the basic principles, which is, setting the ground for being open, for being communicative, for just ensuring that there's psychological safety, right, where they all feel that. Ensuring open communication, which I do in a different way, which is I ask them what's their style
Hmm.
that will actually help them. So, there are times when I say, when you felt most open to be able to communicate, what was that like? And so, sort of putting all that together to see how we can come up with a charter for what good communication looks like, because without that, no team coaching is going to work.
Hmm.
I also think this very interesting thing at the start is I like to have everybody talk about something that they have done well, right? You know, when you have a team of 12 people, yes, they're working as a team, yeah, but they don't know each other beyond a point, right?
Hmm.
You're working, you come to work, you probably have a coffee or whatever, and now in today's remote environment, you don't even do that. So the chance of getting to know each other below the surface is very minimal. You'd be surprised at how many people have worked together for years and don't know much. And so having them talk about something that they have done well, having others appreciate it, sets the tone, sets the mood for collaboration, for
Hmm.
openness. And from there on, I obviously follow the regular team coaching route for us to be able to get to a point where people start to feel safe, open up, talk to each other, and the goals normally flow from there.
Yeah, I've spoken with a lot of the coaches across different, they coach in different sectors and stuff, but that idea of leaders getting to know their team outside of, I guess not a cubicle anymore, but like outside of work is so, it seems to be so important to the foundation of being able to get a team that is willing to go to bat for you, a team that trusts that your decisions are the right decisions, a team that feels comfortable going to you if they've got an idea or a question or whatever. Because I know, when I first started in the corporate world a million years ago, I had, I was right out of college, and anytime I had a question or a suggestion, I was like, well, who am I? Like, who am I to ask somebody this?
Yes.
Who am I to bring this to somebody's attention? Um, and I had a manager who would like, he he was just a very kind person. Like he would ask me how I was still living at home, like ask me how my parents were and my sisters were, and he would like keep up on like, oh, you and your boyfriend, who's now my husband, like, oh, you said you guys were going to see that movie last weekend. How was it? And then I felt comfortable being like, you know what? Someone mentions a thing in a meeting earlier today, and like, I kind of was wondering why we're doing it that way, or I had an idea because it wasn't just like he's my boss, like he was a
Yes.
friend. He was nice. He was interested in like all of me, not in like a creepy bad way, but
Yes.
he was like the whole me, not just like this is Courtney who sits at her desk and does this one job. He
Yes.
saw that I was a person, and it also made me feel, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I have this idea. And he'd be like, oh, we can't do it like that because of whatever. Not just like, no. It was like, oh, this is why we've thought about it. It doesn't work. Or like, oh, let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. Like it might not work, but give it a shot, and we'll like work on it for 2 weeks, and we'll tell everybody how it went at the end. And I've talked to a lot of coaches who say that's like the big thing is like that trust that comes from knowing somebody beyond just what they do in the office from 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it is people work
Exactly.
these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, that's a version of psychological safety that, why go further? Even at home, you need to
Hmm.
build that, right? We just take it for granted, but that's a concerted effort that you need to put in to build that level of psychological safety, to
Hmm.
build that
And that must be
connection.
hard for leaders who are, they've got 2, 3, 10 people on their team. That's got to be hard for them to have to put in that much like
Yes.
emotional work to each person that they're managing. That seems exhausting.
It also is what separates a great leader from a good leader.
Right.
So,
If they can
uh,
do it and pull it off, that's amazing.
yeah, and it doesn't have to go to the extent, right? I mean, it's great you had a manager who cared deeply about you and your family and things like that. Many people may not want that, but they do want to go below the, hey, hi, boss, or,
Right.
this is what it is. So you have to, as a leader, and I work with a lot of leaders, you have to be able to figure out what works for that individual and then,
Hmm.
meet them where they are. Some
Hmm.
of them will definitely want to go that full stretch. Some would want to just stay on the periphery, but they know that you have their back. That's
Hmm.
then what gets them going.
Yeah, he was just a nice guy.
Yeah, you're
And all
lucky.
these years later, I still keep in touch with him. And like his daughter at the time was like, I don't know, in elementary school, and now she just graduated from college. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like we're friends on Facebook. I'm like, look how cute you are. Um, so yeah, he was a nice. I think I was the same age as one of his older daughters. I think I reminded he was like, oh, this is my like work kid. You know how people do the like work,
Yes.
like I was his like work daughter. I think he like took me under
That's
his wing.
lovely. Yeah, you see the difference a leader can make if after whatever number of years you can still remember and remember, finer details of how he treated you. So I think that's the big difference between
And
leading
I
and
remember
managing.
some bad ones too. I
Oh,
remember
you bet.
everybody, I feel like everyone probably remembers a lot of, like, everyone's got a horror story, and then everyone's got their, like, I hope everyone has their, like, and then there was this amazing
Yes.
person. Um,
Yes.
but the horror stories are what folks like you are trying to get out of the picture. Um, so then you mentioned a couple of times the internal barriers. So when you've got mid to senior level leaders, they are making a transition in their period in their work environment. Maybe they're going to a new company, maybe they're getting a promotion, maybe they're just kind of hitting that point where they're like, I'm not feeling fulfilled anymore. I need to like kind of pivot, do something else. What are some of the internal barriers that you see kind of like coming up frequently, or maybe not frequently, but like there is some sort of a trend there? And how do you, again, without giving away your magic secrets, how do you help people kind of like get over that hump of feeling so blocked?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All of us have been through it, so you live it. I think a couple of things really help when somebody is at that point, which is to ground them back again into who they are,
Hmm.
right? Like I told somebody the other day, we were chatting, and she said, similar to what you said earlier, she said, but I don't know if what I have to say is important enough. And she's a reasonably senior leader, and she said, Of course, when I have a point, I'll make it. But if I'm not very certain, I question: should I be
Hmm.
saying this? Does it make sense? There are very senior leaders in the room, and one of the things I told her is, you're at the table because you deserve to be there.
Hmm.
Nobody brought you in without a reason. So always ground yourself in what is reality.
Hmm.
So
I feel
you
like
are.
that's such a good thing for people to remember. If you're at the table, it's because at least one other person wanted you at the table.
And
So,
yeah, in addition to that, it's you deserving to be there because of who you are. That's it.
mhm.
I mean, unless of course you happen to have, your granddad be the owner of the
A
company.
little bit of nepotism going on.
So that's very different. But all of us are there because we deserve to be there, and this is highly, even more important for women leaders to remember. So ground yourself in the realities, and that's what I do with them. Build that awareness of why they're there, why they chose to be there. I mean, we do that even as coaches. We do a reflective session every maybe 6 months or a year to ground ourselves into why did we even start coaching? Are we getting what we thought we would do as coaches? What else can we learn? And then we have supervision and all of that other good stuff. But it's necessary for everybody, including couples therapy, right? You know what I mean? There is a need to stay grounded. So, coming back to leaders, I think there's always this rush. They're constantly on the hamster wheel trying to get the next best thing accomplished. So, what I do with them, going back to my values, etc., I have them ground themselves in who they are, why are they here, whatever might be just holding them back. Use some assessment tools if really they're struggling to figure out what's next, and then take it from there. Whether it's about identifying the fears, reframing them, figuring out what's coming in the way for them, creating little routines to start breaking some of those barriers down, right? Or building new habits that can actually help. So I have a lot of obviously these tools in our toolkit that I would use depending on what we find coming up with a leader. But I think those would be the ways. So first ground them, identify what needs to be identified, and then start using the toolkit, sort of start to build or remove what's not serving them to be able to then go. And then the big one that I use is celebrating progress. There's not that big one where, I mean, if confidence is a big one I deal with all the time. You're never ever going to say, yeah, now I've got like, 3 pounds of confidence. Like, that's not happening, right? How do you realize that you are building that confidence little by little? And so then celebrating progress every time you show up in a confident way, and those confident ways have been identified by you. Hey, this is what I think I will feel when I feel confident, right? And
Hmm.
so every time you go through it, you celebrate that progress, and so that keeps the wheel going. And yeah, I think every little counts. Habits slowly help in getting the rhythm going.
Hmm. Just kind of building on those little pieces. I think that a lot of people can get stuck by if you have a goal and you don't break it down enough, and it's like, oh, I didn't like I wanted to do this thing by next month and I didn't do it, so guess I'm never going to be able to do it. And it's like, well, what steps did you take? Were your steps too big? Were you trying to run a marathon before you ran a 5K? Like,
Yeah, it
what?
cannot be all or nothing, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunately how many of us work, especially because these are corporate leaders
Mhm.
who are used to big ticket items, big accomplishments, and success and failure is another one in corporate that's very stark, right? You
Mhm.
either sold that deal or you didn't sell it, or, and things like that. So working with them through that, and then helping them also build a support system, whether it's internal to the organization or external, what I call the professional ecosystem of mentors, peers, sponsors, etc. So I have a little bit that I work with them on that to create that ecosystem that will hold them in good stead, not just for now, but as they go forward. Many of my coaching tools, Courtney, that I work with leaders on is something that they can reuse, and I ask them to make sort of their notes or whatever, to see what will help them if and when they ever come across a similar situation in the future. If we're working together, that's great, but if we're not, they have something that they can go back to.
Right. It still applies even if the
Absolutely.
situation has changed. Um, so we've talked about the fact that you are certified. So you are a certified ICF and EMCC coach, and that you also mentioned your leadership assessments that you use. How do these tools support a transformation in coaching engagement? You know, you had mentioned you were coaching for a while without being certified. Now you are certified. Have you noticed that did you yourself celebrate kind of like leveling up there?
Yes, absolutely. It's let me talk about it in two phases. There's a lot of hard work that goes into getting certified. Just in case people thought it's easy, no, it's hours of studying, and then the hours of coach training, the exam, and then you're like, okay, I've got my certification. So yes, it's a lot of hard work, all for a good reason. So I am a certified professional coach. That's at the ICF PCC level, and I'm currently undergoing training for the master coach level. So that's my goal, to be an MCC, which comes at with about 2,500 hours of coaching. So
Oh.
yeah, but I think I'm done with half the course. I think there's so much of merit in continuous learning and upgrading yourself based on skills and levels that these coach institute, the foundations have. So yeah, I think barring all of the tough bit about coaching or going through the training and the certification, I think there is so much that you learn at every level to be a better coach. And then all of these hours that you put in and practice and so on and so forth really um, makes you a better coach. So the assessments, I think personally I love them for myself, but I think they add a lot of value given that I work with senior leaders.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you have a particular assessment that you think is, I don't want to say your favorite one, like I don't want to ask you to pick favorites, but is there one that you kind of like lean on more than the others, or does it really truly depend on what the situation is? Or is there, this one's only made for this type of person and this is only made for like this type of situation?
I think it's going back to what you said about the situation. So um, for me at the moment, I think for leaders, corporate leaders, and people who are looking to grow, it's again situation based.
Hmm.
People who are looking to grow, especially very senior leaders looking to move into C-suite, etc. The Hogan is a beautiful assessment. I personally think that adds a lot of value because it tells you about how you show up at work and who people perceive you as a leader. Absolutely, everybody wants to know and be a better leader. So that
Hmm.
one. I use the strengths to quite a bit when I'm dealing with, like I said, the military. I coach priests, and I do a lot of other type of coaching. So for them, I tend to use a lot more of the strengths because it's about helping them recognize what are
Hmm.
their, key strengths, and then using that to develop themselves further or, push their agenda, whatever it is that they want to do based on strengths. So
Hmm.
yeah, different. If I'm doing team, I probably will use a lot more of, the disc
Hmm.
and that certificate and that assessment. So those are, I think it's very situation based.
Cool. And then our last question, we've already gone through 5 questions, if you can believe it. So our last question is, on the Accomplisher platform, you are set up to offer the one-on-one sessions. So for a leader who is booking a session with you and they are navigating changes or they're stepping into a bigger role, what is something that someone can expect when they book a session with you? Like, what's kind of your intake session like? How do you decide what direction we're going, what we're going to focus on? I know you've been talking a lot about the person's values and, you know, what they want to be doing. But I imagine as a professional coach, it can't just be like there's got to be some sort of like system behind it. It's not just like, well, I would like to end world hunger. And it's like, well, we all would. We've got to, you know, step back.
Having said that, I mean, is there a system? Every coach has their way of coaching, but really it's about the individual. So, yeah, I hope one day I can coach somebody to solve world hunger, but at the end of the day, I really go with what the client wants. So, on the Accomplisher platform, if you were to book a session with me, the first thing that we would do is just catch up and identify that we are a good fit for each other, right? Chemistry is very important because
Hmm.
these are not individual sessions. These are going to be sessions that can, span 3 months, 6 months, whatever it takes. Because again, like I tell everybody, this is not magic, right? It's going to take time building that relationship, getting comfortable, working on a goal and seeing the goal come to fruition is not going to be immediate. So yes, you can book a one-on-one session, but hopefully that's the start of a relationship that will continue over a period of time, and therefore the chemistry is very important. The other thing that is very important, to something that you spoke about just now, is that goal something that I as a coach can work with you on, right? Of course the client needs to be comfortable with the coach, but as a coach I need to be also comfortable that this is something that I can
Hmm.
support you on. So that's really what that session really helps us do, is identify that we're a good match. And then from there on, the goals are set, um, and then we break it down to figure out how we're going to think about achieving these goals. And what does actually before that, what are the goals and what does those goals look like when they'll be accomplished, right?
Hmm.
Breaking that down, helping the client understand what does success look like in that goal.
Right.
Confidence, let's go back to that basic one. What does confidence mean to you? How would you know you've achieved it?
Hmm.
Those are the conversations that start to make a lot of sense to the client once they get into that next level of conversation. um, and so then we take it from there, like promotion as an example. I am nobody as a coach to confirm a promotion to you, like, right? Working on a goal for promotion is not something in our control. There are factors right completely outside of our control. What does that promotion signify to you?
Hmm.
What does it mean for you to get that? What will it take for you to get that? Those are the aspects that I would work with them on as a coach, to help them get to
Okay.
that point, to then put themselves out there and be the best version of themselves so that they can get the
Hmm.
promotion they're looking for. But that, I want a promotion is probably not going to be a goal that
Right.
I would support them on. Yes, yes, we'll chat about it, and that's when, as a coach, I will help them understand what does that promotion really mean to you, and then you start on
Hmm.
the facets of it. But I hope that gives you a sense of the type of topics that one can work on, and being able to be open as a client, be open to working that topic, that goal, in a way that you are seeing progress to when
Hmm.
you finally accomplish it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, all right. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or advice for the audience?
No, I would say, and not because I'm a coach, but even before I became a coach, I think everybody can do better with support, whether it's within the organization, external to the organization. So my to all of my leaders, I say, try to find an accountability partner, try to find a coach, a sponsor, a mentor, whatever it is that you need, because you just end up becoming a better version of yourself. So if if you feel stuck, if you feel something is not going right, reach out, explore, like, let's do that chemistry and see if this is something that might help you. But if not, search wherever. You don't have to come to a coach, or you don't have to come to me, but just search wherever you can get some support, because you definitely end up being better when you have that accountability partner.
Well, thank you so much, Fiona, for your time. It was great speaking with you. I am going to drop all of your links, your Accomplisher link, your LinkedIn profile. I'll drop all of those in our show notes so folks will be able to find you with ease if they would like to learn more about working with you and book a session.
Thank you, Courtney. Thanks for your time.